that need to have the link. And good morning to you, deputies. I want to say a very big welcome. It's amazing to be able to connect with you online. This is now our third board meeting, so I'm very, very proud that we can all take part and be together today. And I hope that you've had a very good few weeks. And I know that lots has been going on in the community, and there's a lot to discuss today. We haven't got a speaker, so I want everyone to feel free to say whatever they would like. You've all got 2.5 minutes. You can either ask a question or you can make a statement. Can I please remind everybody that you are responsible for your own conduct, and that you should be making sure that you really think about all the things that you say. And we're going to hand over now to Gillian, who's going to deal with the practical arrangements for the meeting. So thank you very much, Gillian.
Thanks, Marie, and good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Very good to see so many of you. And as Marie says, to have seen so many of you in the intervening weeks at various events. So I'm just going to run through the technical arrangements. You've all had this has all been sent to you in the paper. So if you forget anything, please refer back to your papers. However, just to help you, I'll remind you of how the meeting will run. So as an attendee in the Zoom meetings, you'll be able to hear and see the honorary officers and myself, and we will be listed as meeting co-hosts. You will be able to see the other participants in the meeting, and you can see the list of attendees in the participants panel. You will notice that we have our 4 trustee board meeting administrators present: Judy Silkoff, Director of Operations, Lauren Kalis, Community Engagement Officer, Leo Mindell and Xander Mindell, who live stream the meetings, and they will be listed as host or co-host in order to oversee the smooth running of the digital meeting. Some of them have turned their cameras off for a moment, so you can enjoy looking at them briefly. And so you know, their cameras will be turned off for the majority of the meeting, but thanks to the team for delivering the meeting today for all of us. Third point is
thank you very much.
Without them, it wouldn't work, Marie. So you're quite right.
Absolutely, it's quite right to thank the team.
By default, microphones will be muted.
There's an echo. Please go away. There's an echo. We'll email
Sheila, you need to mute.
I know.
So, as I said, microphones will be muted for deputies for the duration of the meeting. If you would like to ask a question during the board meeting, you can indicate this by using the virtual raised hand function. And equally, if you wish to raise a point of order, you can indicate this by using the no function. And both functions can be found in the participant panel. To assure you, when you are called upon to speak, and Marie will indicate by saying who's going to be called to speak, when it's your turn, the administrator will unmute you. So it will all happen for you. If you do want to ask a question, you must make sure your video camera is turned on and that you are visible before raising your hand. This is for security purposes, because only those who are visible will be invited by Marie to speak. As Marie said, the time limit is up to 2.5 minutes. And if time runs out, your microphone will be muted. It won't hurt, but you ought to know that. And then the last point on the vote that will be taken, the indicative vote, before the vote takes place, we will make sure that everyone who's eligible to vote can do so, and those who are not, who include obviously staff members, under 35 observers and observers, those who are not eligible will be temporarily given what's called co-hosting status. So there'll be, again, it won't hurt and you don't have to do anything, but if you're entitled to a vote, you will get one. And I just wanted to finally say, Marie, thanks to all the deputies who, I mean, the response has been tremendous when we've asked for feedback straight after the meeting. We'll do so again, and it's really helped us all to improve things for deputies. So thank you for working with us, and have a good meeting.
Thank you. And can I also say that I've very much enjoyed reading the feedback from deputies as well, because it really helps us to plan the meetings, and it's a wonderful opportunity to get all of your input and your views. So I'd like to thank you for all of that. Could I now please turn to the minutes of the board meeting of the 21st of June. I haven't had any correspondence, so can I take these as read, or does anybody have any points of order that they wish to raise? I can't see that anybody's got their hands up, so thank you very much. I'll take those as read. Thank you. I'd like now to come to a very historic part of the Board of Deputies history. We have, for several triennials, really wanted to make sure that the constitution for the Board of Deputies is updated, that it's fit for purpose, and that this is in a place where we can take the organisation forwards to meet the needs of the community in the years to come. I viewed this as a very essential part of the Board of Deputies work, and I want to pay tribute to everybody who has helped, and led by Ben Crown. This has been an amazing group, and I also want to pay tribute to Mr. Stone, because without Robert, I think right at the beginning, wanting to drive forward change, he's been there, he's been consistent, and I want to thank everybody in the group for having the best interests of the community at heart. So Ben will present to you in a minute, but I want to thank the Constitution Working Group, because they put in a huge amount of time and effort, and I want all deputies to know that they have very robustly engaged in extensive consultation with the honorary officers as to the layout, the type, and how we should move forward in the next triennium. And I think that is a real testament to the democracy of the board, that we've had such robust, as I say, robust negotiations. And this is something that you will now be asked to listen to, and we will be having an indicative vote. I'm going to give Judy Silkoff 2 minutes warning when that comes, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Ben Crown to address you, and after Ben Crown has done, I will be happy to answer any questions, and if Ben wishes to also answer any questions, he will do so. So are you there, Ben?
Yes, thanks very much, Maria. I assume you can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up.
We can all hear you.
Yeah.
You've got the big
There we
thumbs
are.
up, Ben.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. And yes, just to say, obviously, thank you very much to everyone who's fed into all the different stages of the working groups. So deliberations, obviously, this is a process that began not last training, but the training before. In various ways, we are just picking up some of the things which have happened at that point. The working group has sort of deliberated and discussed for about a year and a half at this point. Extensively, you'll remember, of course, the consultation paper that went out in February with the survey and the written responses. We've spoken to sort of divisions and other parts of the board which are impacted, in particular for this set with the FNO and with the exec. And we said there's been extensive discussions with the HOs, and we're confident that these proposals are not just improvements in terms of governance, improvements in terms of the way the board can run, but are practical and will be effective and will be able to be adopted without impairing the other aspects of the board's work in terms of its efficiency and its need to react quickly to ongoing situations. So just very quickly, because obviously the papers have been sent out and you've had a chance to look at them, and for the most part they are very similar to what went out in February. But just to highlight the key points, we're proposing the expansion of the trust board from its current 5 to at least 9. The HOs, as presently constituted, will continue to exist, will continue to run division. And the only change, they will be elected at the same point in time, but the only change will be that we're proposing vice presidential candidates, I should say, run for a specific division. We feel this increases accountability, this increases the ability of candidates to sort of campaign and make commitments about the sort of things they want to deliver. Then, and this is an important change, we're proposing 4 additional trustees for defined roles. We anticipate that over time these roles will change, but for the moment, we're proposing a specific trustee for governance and risk, a specific trustee for fundraising, marketing, and comms, a youth and community continuity trustee, and a regional trustee. And the idea is that every cycle after the HOs have been elected, they will revisit these descriptions. They will then pass to a noms committee who will may have ordinary deputies. The working group will be the first one, but going forward, ordinary deputies who will then scope out these roles, essential skills, desirable skills, and then deputies will be able to come forward and stand for election as they are for as they can do at the moment for HO positions. And then there's an option to expand that trust board further with an extra 2 people if the trustees and the president feel that more skills are needed. The only change I should flag, the only significant change I would say from the proposal sent in February, is that we are no longer recommending an advisory council. We think that this follows sort of extensive feedback from the consultation, and we think that the new method we're proposing to elect more trustees directly from the floor of the plenary, directly from ordinary deputies, sort of accomplishes most of pretty much everything we were hoping to do with that advisory council. And we felt there were drawbacks elsewhere in terms of confusing and conflating the lines of reporting authority to just have a clean plenary divisions trust board set up. A couple of other things which are there later in the papers, just which we're clearing up from earlier discussions. We previously discussed statutory membership of the limited company and the charitable company, that is the board's 2 legal entities, and how deputies interact with them in terms of their legal stance. We're proposing that individual deputies are made members, guarantors technically, of both companies. That gives them various rights in terms of attending board meetings, voting on policy, bringing forward motions, approving accounts, and so on and so forth. I think the point of discussion previously was whether this should apply to just one company or both. We figure that since the board's work encompasses both, it's important that deputies are part of both, they collect officers for both, and so forth. There is, as I said, no legal obligations with regard to membership of the limited company. With regard to charitable company, members are under sort of a good faith obligation to act when they act as deputies in the best interest of the charity. We do not consider this as a particularly major thing, but we will include a note from the board's lawyers just explaining what this is when we send out sort of the draft paperwork in a few weeks' time. And then the final point today is obviously, like I said, the board has 2 entities. Charity does most of it. The limited company is a little bit. It does mostly political stuff around politics in this country, a bit of stuff around Israel. The very strong guidance we've had from our lawyers following discussion with the Charity Commission is there needs to be a couple of directors, a couple of people on the board of this company who are not on the board of the main board of deputies, who are not trustees of the charity. And so we're proposing a mechanism to elect those people as well, so that any issues that arise, we can say, well, there's a clear distinction between the 2 entities, between what the charity does, between what the limited company does, and here is and these extra board members are the way that this is addressed. I will throw open the questions in a minute, but just to talk about next steps. After discussion today, we're going to put these forward to an indicative vote. If that's approved, that will be the 3rd vote that's gone to deputies in the last 3 months, and that will give us everything we then need to go away and finish our drafting of revised corporate documents and revised rules for entities. We would like to send those out to deputies in the middle of August, so about 4 or 5 weeks from now. It takes a little while to draft. That will then give deputies about a month before the September plenary to go through everything in detail. We may have an extra open meeting to discuss detail, to consult with constituencies as necessary, and then I think pending the legal niceties of having a meeting in these weird times, we will then have a meeting, a legally binding meeting in September at September plenary to formally adopt new corporate documents and to sort of dissolve the old unincorporated association, which is the which I think, as discussed previously, one of the 4 things we're trying to do here. Back to you, Marie.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you. And deputies, I also just wanted to be clear to you that when we are having this change in the constitution, I'm making sure that on my part I can promise to deliver this change, and I want to make sure it's something that I think is absolutely feasible, and it's something that will work for the organisation. I just want to just cover off on one point in case anybody is worried. When Ben said people are going to be members of the two companies and mentioned the word guarantors, no one's going to be guaranteeing any sort of money or finance, but in relation to the charity, there is a duty to act in good faith in the best interest of the charity, which will be at the annual general meeting, and we will give deputies a note on this. So I can see that we've got a couple of questions. Would you like to take the questions, Ben, or would you like me to? How would you like to work?
Should we just start? And I think I'll take the questions as they arise, and we can go from there. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, so I've got two people. So Brian, Mark, would you like to ask your question first? Good morning, Brian. Can you come off unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. I think Ben is to be congratulated for the work, but there are two matters which particularly trouble me. As I understand it, the board wanted 11 trustees, that is and you, Marie, want to reserve the right as president to nominate 2 others. Can I say that I would seek a due course to amend that so that all 11 members of the board are actually elected? I think that's very important for one reason, that as president, you have a great deal of power. I'm not criticising that power. I'm merely saying that to add the extra power of being able to add 2 trustees is one which I would not myself give you. And I will vote against this and ask deputies to amend, if you will put an amendment, to allow them to vote as to whether all 11 trustees. If that was the case, I'd be entirely content with this proposal.
Thank you. Can I just respond that the Constitution Working Group obviously was a confidential report, and they all agreed to be confidential in their vote because they also had a democratically elected vote. And that was what was agreed. And as I said, this is an 85% increase in the trust board for what it is at the moment, and a trust board of 9 for the charity and an additional 2 trustees in the limited company is, I think, ideal, with a potential to go up to 11 trustees, and that's a very big increase now. And I've also said that we are in the early stages. We'll have to see how we go, but that was actually after extensive negotiations voted upon by a large majority of the Constitution Working Group and was approved by Ben Crown. So I'm afraid what you're saying is simply not correct, Brian. That was absolutely endorsed by the Constitution Working Group. Carol, could you ask your question, please?
Thank you. Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. Congratulations, Ben, it's an amazing piece of work. One little thing, the elections of the President, Treasurer and Divisional Vice Presidents, could you consider bringing them forward in the year so that they come before the synagogue AGMs? Because we do every time get brand new deputies who don't know anybody, don't know who to vote for, and it's really not fair on them. Thank you.
Sure. Can we take Rob as well, and then I'll just respond to all 3 of those at once, if that's okay.
Hi, Rob Sassoon, S&P Sephardi Community. My question's similarly to do with the elections for the president, the treasurer, and the 3 divisional vice presidents. It's something you mentioned when you were speaking, and it's the sort of very first bullet point on page 2. Each divisional vice president will be elected separately. And I just wanted to sort of ask about the sort of the logic behind that. I mean, there's sort of a couple of immediate questions I would have in terms of how this actually might impact the sort of the structure of elections. As many people here will know, I've been returning officer for many of the board's elections in the past. So I would like to think I know a little bit about the subject. In terms of some of the impacts this could have, at the moment, the way that we elect the vice presidents, we elect all 3 vice presidents in one big single transferable vote, and whoever has the highest number of votes becomes the senior vice president. By splitting those 3 elections up, what you potentially have is the opportunity for a sort of a slate of candidates to each put in one candidate to the 3 electoral positions, and because each election is separate, you could therefore have an entire slate of people getting elected on half the vote, whereas in an STV election, if those same 3 people stood as part of a much wider group, you would maybe only 1 or 2 of them would get elected because of the way that the votes transfer and carry over. So I guess that sort of would be my main point of concern. I just wanted to know what the logic behind the Constitution Working Group's decision was in that regard. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Robin. So let me just pick up first of all, just going back to Brian's question. What we're proposing at the moment is that the additional trustee, 9 are elected, and then the option on whether to take up those final 2 sits with the President of the Trust Board. But if they decide to take it up, then it proceeds in the same way that the roles are defined. Deputies can run for them, and there is an election in the normal way. It's not for, we're not saying, oh, you can just add a couple of extra trustees if you want. I think, that's in the document on the 5th bullet point on the 2nd page. These positions would be elected by deputies in the same way. Carol, we very much take your point. There is this perennial issue that on the one hand, we want to hold elections when people are familiar with candidates and when people know who the deputies are. And so that argues towards doing it at the end of the triennium. There's an argument that it's silly for deputies who are leaving to appoint the officers for the next triennium, so that the new slate of deputies don't have a stance. What we're proposing here is kind of split the difference. We're electing the HOs, the president, the treasurer, from the old triennium, as we do at the moment, when deputies are familiar with who they are, and then in the new cycle, we're electing the further 4, which are more skills-based roles, which are more internal roles, which are less political roles in the same way. So we think there it's less important for deputies to for deputies had to have extensive knowledge and experience of how sort of the candidates shape up sort of in a broad context. So we're sort of splitting the difference to make sure that so we accommodate both sides. As regards to the point about AGMs, one of the things we've also said we'll do in the rules when we're rewriting them is to sort of streamline a little bit the process for onboarding new deputies, to try and make that a quicker process, so everyone, by the time we get to the first plenary of the new triennium, will be able to vote. Sassy, for your question about senior VP and more generally, we'll find a mechanism to have a senior vice president. That's an important thing to have. As regards the slate, we're having these elections will be as elections. I know it's very funny, isn't it? But these elections will be as they currently are on an AV/STV basis. So we're not talking about sort of first past the post when someone with a minority can be elected. Any candidate will need to have the support of a majority of people who are voting in order to win election, the same way the president is elected now. And in the same way, and we think that's healthier than the alternative, which is you elect people and you don't know which division they're going to end up with. You're electing people and they say, I would like to X and Y and Z, but they can only actually commit to sort of being a good HO. They can't commit to anything sort of divisionally or divisional specific. And STV generally is a process which is, as you know, which is one of the things it's designed to is to prevent. It's majoritarian. It's designed to prevent slates. It's designed to prevent people from organising in that way. Marie, let me pass back to you for a couple more questions.
Yes, thank you. Could I just at this point have Robert Stone on, because I think he really does deserve some thanks. Are you there, Robert? Just give Robert.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Hello. I really want to say thank you, because Robert has really championed this, all of the last triennium, and we're on the verge of making this happen. So have you got any words for the deputies, Robert?
Well, first of all, an enormous thank you to Marie, because as you said, I've been pushing for this for what is now, in fact, Karen sent me a paper we wrote back in 2015. I'd already been working on it for 3 years, Karen Newman. So thank you, Marie, because you've really taken this forward. We've had major disagreements with you and within the group. And as I had to remind the group, compromise means that not everybody's happy with everything in the thing, otherwise it wouldn't be a compromise. But I think this is an excellent compromise. I just want to emphasize to Brian Marks, because I would have fought tooth and nail if we'd have said that the president will decide there are 2 more deputies and appoint them. It says clearly in the paper, Marie or the president at the time will decide whether to add the 2 deputies, and then they'll be elected just like the other deputies. The accountability thing is the thing I've been pushing for all this time, and I am so pleased we've got this far. And I will, by the way, if you vote against this, I am going to kill myself. So not that I wish to be influenced by that threat, but a lot of people, including Ben, who's worked his socks off, have been working on this for a long time. So I'm delighted we've got to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've been asked to remind everybody to say their name and constituencies when they come on. On the point of election, it was something that came out of the group. This suggestion of individual election for a vice president post, and I think that really makes sense. It's the same voting mechanism, single transferable vote. I'm told it's called alternate transferable vote because it's one person, but this means that each person that stands will be standing for a particular role. They will need to have the skills for that role, and they will need to get more than 50% of the vote of the room. So it should mean that it's a very fair system of voting that will mean that the confidence of the greater part of the deputies will be for each person who's elected. And as I think Robert said, and I said at the time, a compromise is uncomfortable for everyone. No one is going to be happy with absolutely every single aspect of it. And on my part, I have to be confident that I can deliver this change, because it is a very, very big change for the organisation, and it is a hugely expanded trust board, which I really welcome. And in addition, can I just say, in relation to the additional deputies, the president, I would recommend to the trust board, if we needed additional trustees, this partly might depend upon the makeup and skills of the trustees that we've got, or some particular events that happen and we need to have additional trustees. That then would have to be approved by the trustee board, and it would then come back to deputies in order for deputies to vote who the additional trustees are going to be. I can see we've got a couple of questions, and can I say, anybody who's on the Constitutional Working Group, again, my thanks. And the vote that was there should have been confidential, but it was an overwhelming vote. So I just think that I need to make that clear, because I don't think the majority of hardworking people on the Constitution Working Group should be undermined in any way. I've got a couple of questions, so I'll come back to Brian Gedalia. Can you unmute and say your name and constituency? And thank you, Robert. Thank you again. Brian, are you there?
Yeah.
Hello.
Brian Gadala, Finchley United Synagogue. Just coming back to the discussion with Ben a moment or two ago about the electoral system and the method of counting votes. Having acted as a scrutineer and as a returning officer for a number of board elections in the last couple of years, my observation is that STV, in the case of a single candidate election, works extremely well. It produces an intellectually satisfying result and a clearly transparent result that nobody can really argue with. The problem arises where we have, as we do for the divisional boards, or for by-elections where more than one candidate is being elected. And the current methodology used by the board, which is what I would like to call a top-down computerized counting method, which works in terms of assigning thresholds and I can't remember the word, but what it does is it elects candidates, assigns their surplus votes to other candidates lower down, at the same time as eliminating candidates at the bottom. produces a result which, while it may well be scientifically and statistically extremely accurate, is completely opaque. It's almost impossible even for the scrutineers to satisfy themselves that it is correct. You're completely reliant on the computer program to produce the answers. And as for any deputy asking to see the proof that the election has been conducted properly, it's almost impossible for them to ascertain to themselves that the result is fair. I would suggest and recommend that the committee look seriously at how multiple candidate elections are to be conducted in terms of the voting and the counting, and possibly move to a simpler method of simple bottom-up elimination, because that at least produces a result which is demonstrable and can be defended easily.
You're on Amber.
Yes, sorry, can I just very quickly, Brian, when you says we're only proposing single constituency election. If I understand what you're saying correctly, you're saying you like what's in this paper. You're saying you'd like us to have another look at the process for electing people to divisions.
I think that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Because as I say, when you look at the results from a multiple candidate election, it really is completely opaque.
Brian, I'll drop your line to pick this up. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that, Brian. Can I just remind deputies that you've still got 2.5 minutes. Really, I don't want to cut anybody off, but can I just remind you? But thank you, Brian, for that. It's a very fair point. Can I reiterate to deputies that not everyone is going to agree on every single aspect of the Constitution Working Group changes, but you have the Constitution Working Group and the honorary officers have had extensive negotiations. And I'm also very confident that what is being proposed is something that I personally can deliver and is fair. And I think it's right that if there is a vice president, when the vote is there, that person who is successful will have to get the confidence of 50% in the room. I'd like to call Andrew Gilbert. Are you there, Andrew?
I am, yes, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, would you like to explain to people about single transferable vote for individual candidates?
Yes, sorry, I didn't know you were going to call me on that, Marie. I think it's all very clear from what was said. We have a system that was very unclear, but single transferable votes in a single election for the divisions would be very different from the where it has to be, I think, by a block vote. The issue of the vice president elections is that it was very unclear when people were taking part, and this will give much greater clarity. People can go, as Ben Crown said, for individual roles. The ACTV on a single election and AV are the same thing. That doesn't make any different matter at all. But this will give, as Ben and others have said, 51% will be needed to be elected as vice president. I'm not sure what more you were wanting me to say than that, Marie.
Just to explain it, okay, so that people are clear. All right, thank you very much. Can I please call David Sello? And can you please give your name and constituency? Thank you. David. Are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm on there.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marie. Good morning. David Selo, Brighton Hove Progressive Synagogue. Just a couple of questions on clarification. One on the limited company. Can I have more details of how the two additional posts, the two additional elections, they've got to have this 7, how that actually will work? Because we talked about the trustee board, but we haven't talked about limited company, and there's 2 extra positions that the plenary has to approve, because that seems to be something different. The other question is on the number of terms of office. At the moment, the president and the vice president can serve for 2 terms. What will be the position with trustees and the whole trustee board? Is there a limit being proposed as current, or are we proposing something different?
Sure. So just to go in reverse order, I think we're at the moment, I think we're planning to keep things as they are, 2 and a 2-term maximum, I would be open to discussing that perhaps people could be a skill or roles trustee and then transition to being a sort of a vice president divisional trustee. We've not got into sort of the detail of that, though I can see sort of an arguments both ways. I think, like I said, when we come back with the detailed rules, that's a point of discussion. For the limited company, because there are specific skills that are needed, this really is a governance role, an oversight role. I think the recommendation we had is that the trust board will nominate 2 candidates and put them to the plenary for ratification. The deputies will still have a say, but this is much more a case where the trustees will need to say, well, we need someone with expertise in this, we need someone with expertise with this, because we run a very complex organization that needs to deal with these issues in a very specific way. And I think, like I said, the plan is the limited company is going to meet 2 or 3 times a year. It's sort of a governance thing. It's a legal structure which we need in order to do the work we're doing in a safe and secure way without litigation. But practically, it's not going to be involved in sort of the day-to-day work of the board in the same way that the charitable company is.
Thank you.
Marie,
Can I just
should we take?
Yes,
2 or 3
I just
more?
wanted to clarify. Yeah. Can I just clarify that the limited company won't be holding all of the charitable funds? So the money from the sale of the building is in the charity. So at present, the limited company, for example, has got the rep fees in there, but the main charitable funds will still remain with the charity. We'll take a couple of questions at a time now. So for the next people to ask questions, could we please have, because we're going to run out of time, apologies, Talof there, and then Adrian Cohen, and then Stephen Daniels. Could you 3 ask your questions? Thank you. And your name and constituency, please.
Good morning. It's Talof from Chigwell and Hainault. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Good morning. It's Talof from Chigwell and Hainault. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Ben, and everyone involved in the work on the Constitution. I've written a couple of months ago and I didn't get a response, and I just want to clarify one important point. When it comes to the elections, there is currently something very undemocratic when deputies could stand both for the president position and the vice president position. And I suggested that a deputy, when he chooses to stand for a position, can choose just one position to stand for, to make sure that it's more democratic. So I just want to understand if it's going to be reflected in the new constitution proposals.
Should we take another couple of questions?
Yes, Adrian Cohen, followed by Stephen Daniels, please.
Adrian Cohen, Highgate United. First of all, just to thank Ben and Robert Stone and all the working group for the work we've done on this. And as you say, a compromise does involve people agreeing to accept something that may not in all aspects be exactly what they want. But just to commend the board really, because I know this has been in gestation for years. So it's quite a miracle that we've actually reached a point where we have something to go before the deputies in plenary. I just wondered whether it's worth just repraising what steps have been taken to consult with the deputies. I know that I attended a lengthy consultation session, so maybe it's a good idea to remind deputies of that as as part of the process. Thank you.
Sure. And then
Stephen
Stephen,
Daniels.
then I'll come together, yeah.
Are you there, Stephen?
Yes, I'm there. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Stephen Daniels, Pinner United. I also like to congratulate everybody on the work that's been done. What I would like to say, though, is hearing all the discussion this morning, I'm slightly disturbed about the way we're being asked to vote in principle for this. You yourself, Madam President, have sort of said we shouldn't ignore all the work of the group that's done it with a heavy majority in favour. I understand that. To hear Robert say, and I'm sure he was only jesting, that he's going to kill himself if the vote is not passed, is also not great. You've got 160 people on the call. There have been some very, very good points which have been raised. And I'd just like to understand that you are going to listen to what is being said this morning And I expect this will be agreed in principle, but all the things which have been talked about will be taken away for further consideration.
Can I just say thank you on that one? Can I just say, Daniel, can I say thank you for that? These matters that are being discussed this morning have been discussed ad infinitum. I had a very, very long meeting with the Constitution Working Group. They raised all of these issues. Not everything that is passed is going to be perfect, but we need to make change to this organisation. And if we don't agree change, nothing is going to happen. It's going to be a very big task. And on my part, I'm very flexible, very open to seeing what works and what doesn't. And it may be that further down the line, we are going to have some further change, or we might think after the next lot of elections that we didn't like each person standing for a particular role, and that we have to do things differently. So just because we make a change now, it doesn't preclude coming back, looking at it, seeing what we can do better. But I'm very concerned that we get these changes through, and that I, on my part, promise what I know that I can deliver for an effective trust board with the right skills. And we've got some very powerful personalities, I can assure you, in the Constitution Working Group, and they have not been shy. They've been very, very robust with their views, but we have got to get to the point where we're making a decision. We're not making that decision today. Nobody's being harried. We've got lots of, we've had workshops. We're not going to have the final vote with the documents until September. So we're consulting a long time in advance, but all we're asking for today is an indicative points so that we can proceed. So I just think that's very important. And again, I go back to what has been said before by Robert Stone. A compromise means that not everybody is comfortable. I'm not comfortable with everything that was suggested, but this is something that I think that on my part, I can make sure that we have an effective organisation with an enhanced trust board with the right skills, and that we will be flexible, and we will make it work. So we have to keep an open mind going forward. So I'll carry on, let Ben do that.
Oh, sure, yes.
Further.
So I guess
Any further
the answer to Adrian, Stephen, is sort of, sort of the same thing in different ways. I was very quickly to run through. Obviously, this is the process, like I said, which started in 2012. Robert Stone ran, and it's sort of an extensive questionnaire and survey report. An organisation working group reported then. There was an external consultant, a lady called Ruth Surge, who also did extensive interviews and reported back. That work then folded into the work in the last triennium. The working group was led by Richard Verber, that produced the role of the Deputies document, proposal on improving board meetings, organisational changes. At the end of the last triennium, the plenary did vote to expand the trust board to 9 and to abolish the executive, and we've incorporated all of those, as well as everything all the discussion we've had in this cycle into our discussions, as we will do for everything that's happened sort of in this meeting as well. We're going to go away. We're going to draft up the rules, and that there are points which have not been explicitly covered in these documents, which we will need to go back to what was in the consultation paper in order to draft up rules. I think probably what we will do once we have sent the papers out is to try and have another open meeting like we had in June for detailed questions on the drafting. I think that's the point, to pick up who can run for what where. I think at the moment, obviously, the president and vice president, someone could run for president and the STV multiple constituency vice president roles. Obviously, we're having individual VPs, that changes the dynamics somewhat, but it's something which we need to sort of discuss further. And sort of as throughout, we will be responsive to deputies' concerns and what deputies want. But I should make the point, 300 deputies. We've surveyed, we've taken quantitative and qualitative responses, and we have listened to every individual point that's been made, but we are not necessarily incorporating every individual point because many of them sort of contradict each other. And as Marie and Robert and others have said, we're trying to create something which balances as best we can all the different factors that are pulling in different directions to create something that works for the board and works for all as individual deputies.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to take the final 3 questions on this. Apologies that I'm not going to get to everyone. And of course, I like to try and include people that don't speak as often and perhaps haven't had as much involvement in this. And then can I please say to Judy, after the last question, this 3rd question, we will be having the indicative vote if you can prepare this. So in this order, please, could we have George White, Lawrence Julius and Shelley Sauter? Many thanks. Are you there, George?
I'm going to make 2 points. One
Good
is,
morning. Could you say your name and constituency, please?
sorry, George White, US Synagogues. First of all, I want to associate myself with everybody who thanked the team who did this. But I've got 2 points. One is, well, I suggest that before you run the next set of elections and you seal up all the changes in the Constitution, that you actually do a test run. In other words, set up a situation where people stand, go through the voting system and see if the actual thing works. If there are any problems in it, so that you can fix them before we sign off on this particular Constitution. The second thing also is something similar, which is that you ought to get a group of people who specifically look at the changes and see how they can be screwed up, what isn't going to work, to check that what you've actually got is practical and it can actually happen and can be done. Because by doing these kind of exercises, you can tweak the changes that you want to make sure that when they're voted on, they actually work, rather than going through the system, rather than have the thing voted on, get the new constitution, get the new organization, discovers a whole lot of problems with it. That way around, you can find some of the problems before you get there, and it would avoid major changes down the road.
Can I say that's on my part, George? That's a very good point, and I think that's probably my advantage in being the president of the organisation, a trustee of numerous other organisations, and a lawyer. And we've had a very robust constitution working group. That I am confident, and that's why I can only recommend something that I'm confident can be delivered. But I do want to say I agree with you that things may need to be changed and we need to be open-minded. The drafting of the document, of course, will be complex, and I think that what is being proposed in principle is something that I can deliver. It's modern, it's much better than we've got now, but I absolutely agree with you that we have to make sure that we look at it, but we've got to have a situation where we get away with what we've got now, because we have an unincorporated association, which is not something that a modern organisation should be. And the executive shouldn't, for example, have personal liability, which has been left for many years, and we need to be incorporated. And deputies need to become members of the charity and members of the limited company, so that deputies have got a say, because at the moment the trustees are the trustees of the charity. The deputies aren't members of that. So we want to make sure that deputies are responsible for having a say and being members of the organisation. They're not even members at the moment. And if you actually think about what that means, it's been a very strange situation for a long time that this unincorporated body has been sitting there. And I think this will give deputies a much greater stake in the organisation. Ben, have you got any additional points?
Yeah, I think just to make the point that we will have a drafting working group who will, one person will draft, Colin Grazin, who has experience in this area, has been great so far, but other eyes will look at it before it goes out. The board's lawyers obviously are going to scrutinise it line by line. I take the point about troubleshooting. We've had a couple of offers of people who have experience to work out exactly what can go wrong with rules to have a look at that. So we will take care of that. So as part of this process, to make sure that what comes out is sort of robust and has been troubleshot at least to the limits of the imaginations of deputies, which I'm told are quite extensive. I think one or two more questions.
We've got Lawrence Julius and Shelley Sauter, and then we're going to have the indicative vote. Thank you.
Hi, Lawrence Julius, Holland Park Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue. I should say, when Ben first sent out the document for consultation, I was a real skeptic, and I had a lot of correspondence with Ben, and he invited me to join the CWG, which was fantastic. there's been lots of very healthy discussion and all my concerns have been broadly met. I would say it's a lot better than the constitution we have today. It really improves transparency and governance. And I fully endorse this as a step forward. It's not cast in stone. In 6 months or a year's time. If it doesn't work, we can fine tune it. But I think it's a great improvement.
Thank you very much.
And we've got Shelley Salter. Can you come off mute, please, Shelley? Can Shelley come off mute? That's it. Thank you. We can't hear you though.
Hear me now?
Yeah,
Hello?
yes, we can. Welcome.
I just like
Hi, can you say your name and constituency?
My name is Shelley Salter and I'm from the LJS, the Liberal Synagogue, St John's Wood. I just like to say I like the portfolio idea of this committee. It means it professionalises the committee, but I would also like to see a couple of people who just are without portfolio, with vested interest, general, ordinary deputies, because otherwise people don't, as a training thing, you know, you get new deputies who don't understand anything, who don't understand how it works, and they need to get on these committees as junior members to get some experience. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one of the things, of course, we want, which was the manifesto pledge that I made, is to have a youth trustee. It's not going to stop everybody being involved in committees and being vice chairs of committees. Those roles are still going to be there. But we are an organisation that does need to have skilled trustees. And I think that's very important. And the trustees are only going to be deputies. So the skill will come from the floor. So I absolutely thank you for that point. But there's lots of other roles to do. There's lots of things to be done. I don't know if you want to add anything to that point. And also we may change as we go forwards the trustee roles that are needed. Like, for example, at the moment, it's my view that we need a governance trustee, because I think that's something that's very important, and a regional trustee, so that we make sure that we support the regions. Times may change, we may need more trustees, different roles, and that's a matter for the trust board. So that's on my part. Ben, have you got anything to add for the?
I think the only thing to chuck in is just, and obviously it's not for today's paper, for today's vote, but one of the other proposals we made in the original consultation in February, based on our early discussions, was to keep divisions at their current size of 16, but to move from a model where 12 people are directly elected, and then there's options to co-opt people on the skills, for experience and so forth. And we think that one of the things that we'll do in particular is that for deputies who are elected mid-cycle, or for deputies who are not sort of registered on day one of the new triennium, there's a place to involve those people in a more structured and coherent way than we currently have. I think that picks up sort of some of what you're saying. In order to get people involved in divisions and committees, sometimes you need a mechanism that isn't just a massive vote of the entire plenary. But like I said, that'll come back to deputies, yeah.
But Ben and the Constitution Working Group, I again want to thank you. This is democracy in action. We've had very robust discussions, and apologies that I couldn't call all of the Constitution Working Group. I know that Vicky and Jerry Lewis wanted to speak, but thank you to them. Thank you for everybody else on the group. We're not finished the discussions. And again, I apologise that not everything is going to be what everybody would like ideally, but I would just like to stress that what is proposed, I am confident that I would be able to deliver this, and that we would be an effective organisation. And we're seeking here an enhanced trust board of 85%, which is a very, very big increase. I absolutely say that if we don't get it right with the single transferable vote for each candidate, these are things that we can review for next time. Nothing is cast in stone. We have to go forward. We need to make these changes for the benefit of the organisation, so that we can be fit for purpose and move forward as a modern organisation. So I'm going to say thank you again, Ben, for all the work that you've done and will do, because it is a huge amount of work, and thank you for all your leadership. I'm now going to ask for an indicative vote. So Judy Silkoff, can you get ready? So what's going to come up, deputies, on your screen? It's not the final vote. You will have the actual documents in the September plenary. The indicative vote is going to be Do you improve in principle the proposed reforms to the board's trust board and other governance issues? So could you all vote? And that please includes HOs. Can you all vote as well? I'm just waiting for confirmation from Judy Silkoff as to whether everybody has finished voting. So can I ask you to be just patient for a tiny bit longer? Okay, not everybody's voted. We have 133 people out of 160 voting. Could I please encourage everybody to use your vote? We're a democratic organisation, and I think that voting is really important. So I'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, could you put up on screen, please, the vote, please, Judy? Thank you, deputies. Okay, thank you. So the vote is yes, 88%, no, 12%. And I'd like to thank everybody for voting. I regret, as I say, that we can't please everyone, but we will continue to have our further discussions, and I absolutely make it clear that we will keep this under review. But I'm very pleased that we can have that vote, because then we can go ahead and we can bring about much needed change, especially to the executive, which needs to have that change. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ben. Can we now please move on to the President's statement? We have got 3 new deputies, so I want to thank you for joining us. So can I say welcome, and I'm sure we would have all given a standing clap to Hannah Metham, who's the new deputy for the JNF. James Harris, of course, our deputy. We're very proud that you are now the UJS president, so that's fantastic news. And from Westminster, we have 2 under 35 observers. We want to say welcome to Sarah Foreman and Joe Crossley. So thank you very much. We look forward to having you all on board. So thank you very much for that. Since the last meeting that we've now had, can I say, in the community, it is very, very tragic. At the beginning of July, 502 Jews have now died from coronavirus, and every death is a real tragedy, and that's very, very hard to bear. That's 2.5% as to the proportion of the general population, so that's still higher than would be expected. It's been a very, very difficult situation for all the communities up and down the country, and of course for everybody. And the volunteering and the help, the altruism and the volunteering from everyone's been incredible. And I particularly want to thank the European Jewish Congress, who have sourced to me 20,000 face masks, which have been distributed up and down the country to various organisations. And I'd like to particularly thank our deputy, David May from Leicester, who came to my house to pick up lots of face masks for the regions. And we know you're having a difficult time in Leicester, and all of our thoughts are with you there. We're not in any rush. The deputies will be able to talk. So it's only 11:30, so we can go through the President's statement. Weddings and synagogues reopening. We are pleased that there has now been, subject to caveats, weddings can take place, and synagogues can be reopening. We are, of course, welcoming the government's decision to reopen synagogues and allow weddings of up to 30 people. And of course, we wish to congratulate Princess Beatrice and her new husband. That's absolutely fantastic news there. And we want to again say how good it's been to work with different religious denominations, and that for some in our community, particularly the Orthodox and strictly Orthodox, it's been very, very difficult where weddings haven't been able to take place. In relation to the political situation, as I've set out in the President's statement, Rebecca Long Bailey, she posted an interview on Twitter with the actress Maxine Peake, repeating the conspiracy theory that Israeli forces had taught the Minnesota police the fatal knee chokehold, which was used to murder George Floyd. I want to make it absolutely clear that we gave her ample chance to apologise. We wrote to her, and her response, as I've said in the President's statement, was absolutely pathetic. And she claimed not to support that element of the piece. And the tweet hadn't been taken down for several days. Keir Starmer has acted with impressive speed and authority, and he is backing up his words with action. So I want to thank him for that. I've always said that we need to see action from the Labour Party, and what has happened to date has been a very, very good start. And this is something that we need to continually look at, but we're very, very pleased that has happened. The board is also very proud of its work for the Commission on Racial Inclusivity in the Jewish community. And I hope that you have seen the podcast, otherwise it's still online. And this was done very well by the Board of Deputies, chaired by Stephen Bush and Gillian. And I really would recommend some of the podcasts that we're doing for the up-to-date situations at the moment, and it's giving everybody a chance to be involved. And the board is trying to get into a medium of having used technology for everyone to be involved, whether or not they're members of the Board of Deputies, and that for me is something that I'm extremely proud of. I'm also proud the Commission is going to actively encourage testimony from children who are Black Jews, non-Black Jews of colour, or Mizrahi, and that we have developed a safeguarding protocol to support them for doing this. And can I remind everyone that once that evidence has been collected, the Commission is going to approach Jewish denominations, schools, and other key institutions to discuss the findings and come up with ways to make the Jewish community an unequivocally anti-racist environment. We've had a lot of talk about the Israel debate and motions. The situation at present is that there are three different motions. And can I say, I'm not surprised that there are three different motions, because that actually reflects the diversity of views in the community about Israel. And the board is going to have a special board meeting on August the 23rd, where these motions will be debated. And just to clarify, this is still going to be a board meeting, but there won't be division reports at that meeting, but it will still be a board meeting. The decision has been made by the executive not to live stream that meeting, and there was an extensive discussion on this. And that is the decision that has, as I say, has been taken, and I'm very much looking forward to the debate. And can I say beforehand, various organisations have asked for materials to be distributed. We will distribute material. We will make sure the material is balanced. We will be having workshops, and we're very much looking forward to having this debate. I'd also like to point out, as I have done in the President's statement, that a number of motions are being submitted by deputies for various things, which quite frankly should have been things that I, for example, or Gillian or the executive could have been asked. Can I say that the Board of Deputies has got limited resources? we're trying to do all we can in the community for coronavirus. And it is very difficult when resources are being taken up by motions. I hope deputies realise the amount of time, and I'm not including the Israel motions when I say other motions have been presented, but I mean motions in relation to what I call working matters being presented, because that really does take up the resources and time of the board, when quite frankly we could be helping people and doing a lot of other work. I can see that I've already got some questions coming up, so can I use this time now to take some questions? So can I come and ask first, please, Janet Tresmond, can you state your name and constituency? You've got 2.5 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President. Janet Tresmond.
Good morning.
Janet Tresmond, Finchley Progressive Synagogue. Please forgive the halo. It's my light, and I need it to be put on.
We all need a halo. Thank you.
We're very proud that the board have grabbed the opportunity to set up the Commission for Racial Inclusivity, and we were very honoured at Finchley Progressive this week to have a very full debate about it. Some of the deputies here were present. I had invited them, and we had 3 extraordinary speakers from the Jewish Black communities, or Jewish people of colour, and that has yet to be decided as to really what is the best way of describing them and how they would like to be described themselves as most important. But 2 reports have come to me since that meeting, which is very disquieting, and I don't want to criticise the Commission, but these reports are that, evidenced by 2 very strong and useful speakers and Jewish, Black Jews have had either their evidence rejected by the chairman or have not heard from them in reply. I understand that Anthony Silcoff is on holiday to the 24th of July, but not to be heard, not to have an acknowledgement for several weeks, and for evidence to be rejected before there's ever been a discussion doesn't seem right. And the chairman's job is not to reject evidence without discussion, but to take evidence in a neutral role and not make a decision preempt it coming to the public forum. I assume the Commission will report to the plenaries with the report so that we can discuss it before it's finalised, which is not to say that we should make decisions as to what's in it, but that we should at least know. And I would like to attend a meeting online just to hear what's being said, not to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, obviously, we're very grateful to have Stephen Bush to be a chairman. And like any chairman, chairmen have to make decisions. I think I know the name of the individual that you're referring to. And Stephen Bush has considered whether or not she should be admitted. And he's put out his reasons, I understand, very carefully. And I'm sure we can all look at that. But he's got to be allowed to run this commission. It's not like the Board of Deputies. He's got to find his own feet. He's got to make his decisions. We will all be looking at what he's got to say, and I think we should give him a chance. I don't want to see this commission undermined by people, and if people at the end of the day don't feel he's taken things into account, then I think we should comment at that point. But I think it's not very fair to make allegations that he hasn't done things now based upon what someone might have said if someone doesn't like something. And I think he needs to be given a chance. He's also a volunteer. He's giving his time, and he's extremely experienced. So I'd like to see him carry on with his work. It's an excellent work, and of course we will all hear about the commission, and we will all talk about it. But he's got to be allowed to make his decisions, and if people don't agree, then obviously we'll look at that afterwards. So thank you for your question. I very much appreciate it. Toby Coonan, could you say your name and constituency, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
Morning.
Toby Coonan, Noam Masorti Youth. I was slightly disappointed to notice in the document circulated and the social media from the board recently that there's been no mention at all of the newly approved Eruv in Leeds. As I'm sure you're aware, this is one of the most important updates for our community in years. And it was on the front page of the Jewish Telegraph, but no mention from the board. And I began to sort of fit this into a pattern after, as a relatively new deputy, viewing a full list of deputies for the first time, and noticed that only 3 from Leeds representatives and from Leeds institutions, which is the same number as deputies from the whole rep council, Hull, a community 2% of the size. If the deputies were allocated proportionally, Leeds would expect 8 for our 7,000 strong Jewish community. And of course, they're not allocated proportionally, and there are some deputies like myself from Leeds who represent sort of larger communal bodies. But if anything, our current system ought to overrepresent regional communities for the diversity of opinion rather than underrepresent. I know that I was just going to finish off, sorry, that some Leeds schools have opted out due to the cost, which I think is a problem in itself, that it's not seen as good value for money. And I know the Constitutional Review is thinking about some of these issues, but firstly, will the President join me in congratulating the Leeds Jewish community on this monumentous achievement? But also, will she talk through ideas for increasing representation for regional communities like Leeds beyond a new spot on the Board of Trustees and rebuilding the faith in our communities in the board as an institution? Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I actually welcome your question, and I welcome you being a deputy, because I actually think that Leeds should be sending more deputies. I think it's like really important, and we're also reliant upon you for telling us things, and it is a monumental achievement. I congratulate Leeds in having the Erev, and I know that we've got Colin Grazing, who also has a huge contribution to make from Leeds. I would really like nothing more than to have more representative from Leeds. Leeds is a wonderful, vibrant city, and Leeds should want to be represented. And I do appreciate that £30 a person to pay for the Board of Deputies might be perceived as a lot of money per year, but the board does a huge amount of work. And I've given every commitment that I don't want the board to be London-centric. My first day in office was in Manchester. I'm sorry it wasn't Leeds, but we've also just appointed Sarah Radavan, our first member of staff, to be based outside of London, and we want nothing more. Please come forward from Leeds. Toby, get us some more deputies, because we want to hear the voice from Leeds. I think it's really important. You're leading the way, and it's great that you're also a young voice for the community, but there's nothing more important. And I would absolutely welcome more deputies from Leeds, and we ought to take this offline, speak to Sarah Radavan. And can I say, if anybody's listening, please invite me to your shuls in Leeds. I would love to be able to connect with the community, and I think that's a very, very important work to do going forward. And that is a really good question. So congratulations to Leeds. I think that is monumental, and that's obviously going to be really, really helpful having the Erev. Thank you. Thank you. Can we have some people that don't normally speak? Jonathan Neumann. We ought to be able to get people fairly quickly. Perhaps Jonathan's not there.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Jonathan,
can you say your name and thank you.
Jonathan Ewan, Sean-Ray Adas. Thanks, Marie. My question relates to the Commission on Racial Inclusivity. We've discussed how in the constitutional proposals it's proposed that there be an under 35 trustee, presumably to ensure that that underrepresented group has a seat at the table. So I find it a bit curious that there isn't room for a trustee who's a Jew of color. Given everything that's going on, it seems like a curious oversight. The Commission is going to make recommendations, including on leadership and representation, and the board is going to promote these recommendations to the rest of the community. But how can we as the board possibly have the moral authority to do that? How can we make these recommendations on behalf of the board to our communities if the board isn't showing leadership and getting our own house in order first?
Forgive me for mentioning this, but our own esteemed Vice President Edwin Shuker is from the Mizrahi community. I don't know if you know that, and he does the most amazing talks where he talks about the history. Where are you, Edwin? Is Edwin here? Can we get him on very quickly? I'm not sure that we can. Okay, yeah. But there we go. Edwin, would you just like to clarify that you are indeed a trustee and vice president leading the way, and you're from the Mizrahi community?
Yes, and not only that, but in my introduction to my community's report, I will mention more about how I intend to be part of that commission and to give evidence and testimony, to invite other people. And I take your point very much on board, and I will be elaborating later on that. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, and thank you, Jonathan, for that. But we do take it seriously, but we already have a fantastic Vice President and Trustee, and may we please have many more. Thank you for that. David Katz. I'm hoping that David is that. Morning, David.
Good morning. It's just on this question of this commission. It's very unclear to me from the information we've received as to who, apart from the chairman, are the members of the commission, and whether there's any expert advice that's being sought from outside bodies that do have experience in this kind of commission and analysis. Because the question of how it's been set up and how it's been presented to us has not really clarified any of those points. In addition, following on your comments about Edwin, I'm not altogether clear whether this is meant to be a commission that's looking at issues of the what let's call in general terms the Mizrahi community, as well as issues relating to those who have more striking differences in ethnicity and in protected characteristics. These are issues that are actually important from the point of view of the acceptance of what the findings of the commission are.
Thank you. Can I just say that the commission is going to take evidence from Black Jews, non-Black Jews of colour, and Mizrahi Jews, and it's also going to invite oral and written evidence from British Jews with Black spouses or partners, non-Jewish Black people who work or volunteer in Jewish communal spaces, and it's going to be a very, very big commission. It's going to be extensive, and I think that we all need to give this a chance. It's very early days. It's not something that we've done before. The terms of reference have been published, and I think we need to see how this goes. But this is something that's had a huge amount of interest in the community. And when we invited Stephen Bush to lead this commission, we really did think that he would be excellent for the role. And look, his energy, his enthusiasm and commitment that he's showing is very good. But we need to give it a chance, and we need to give him a chance to get it off the ground. I think lots of people have got all different views, and I accept that. I welcome those views. That's what the Board of Deputies is all about. So can we let the commission get off the ground, and we can keep up the discussion? This is what's important. It's for all of us to have input into that. So thank you. Can I ask Gary Mond, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, my comments relate to section 8 of your report. Last Wednesday evening, the Board of Deputies organised a live webinar with 4 guest speakers from the Haredi community, including, as the President has said in her report, one of our own deputies, Shmuel Davidson from South Tottenham Synagogue. Personally, I found this webinar very educational and informative about the fastest growing group of Jews in our community, and it was great the Board put this programme together. For me, the single biggest problem that the Haredi community has is high levels of poverty, and the speakers made it clear that this is a challenge which they're failing to meet, and poverty is steadily getting worse. Now, there are some of us who believe that we should not care about the Haredim because, apart from Shmuel, they're not represented on the board. I disagree. I think that we should at least reach out the hand of friendship, and that includes working with them to find constructive solutions to their problems. The board's main initiative to date that can be regarded as offering support to the Haredim has been opposition to the government's 2-child policy regarding benefits. As the Haredim traditionally have very large families, they're some of the biggest losers from the benefit cuts. Looking at the political reality, however, I think it's somewhat futile to engage in a debate on government policy here, because under this government, and most probably any other government in the foreseeable future, the benefit cuts are going to remain. So what can the board do? It's hard to address this issue, but we think we should give it some thought. My own suggestion comes from the 8th level of the Rambam, which many of you will know is Moses Maimonides' 8 levels of charity from the Mishnah Torah. The 8th and top level of giving is to support a fellow Jew by finding employment for him or her. This strengthens his or her hand, so he or she will need to be less dependent on others. The board should seek to work with those groups and organisations that make it their business to find employment for Haredim and see what it can do to improve their chances. That, my fellow deputies, is the optimal policy for helping the Haredi community. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And it helps when deputies say thank you at the end, because then I know you're finished, because I don't mean to interrupt anyone. I think it's very important that we engage with the Haredi community. Thank you for that. And can I say that the podcast that we had during the week, an introduction to the Haredi community, was very well received. And I'd particularly like to commend Work Avenue. They're an amazing organisation. They do a lot of work for the Haredi community. And of course, the board is seeking to become much more a part of the community in Manchester. You'll see from the podcast, we've also had representatives from Manchester, and Sarah Radovan is actually based there. So it's very important that we're providing support in the regions. And thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask 2 more deputies to come forward, and then we need to move on to the divisional reports, because although we don't have a speaker, believe it or not, we're now running behind. So I'm really sorry that I can't call everyone. So let me call people, please, that don't normally come to the stand. So could I please have Colin Grazin and Marilyn, who's down as Marilyn Milne, coming forward. Colin.
This is the first time I've chosen, Colin Grazin, Leeds Jewish Representative Council. This is the first time I've chosen to speak about Leeds at all. And I only do so thanks to Toby, who I know well and is to be commended for his enthusiasm, from an amazing family in Leeds, whom I also know well. Just to fill you in, on the 23rd of March, I was due to go to Leeds with Amanda to meet the 3 presidents of the 3 Orthodox schools who are not presently represented on the board. That had to be cancelled because of lockdown. I know those 3 presidents very well. I think all of them had a commitment informally to participate in the work of the board. I've had further discussions with the Representative Council in Leeds over the last few weeks, and we're hopeful that when lockdown ceases and we can go to Leeds, we will repeat the meeting in person. And I know that Amanda is still on board. So just to reassure Toby, things are happening, and I think that there is a real chance of progress towards Leeds being properly represented. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Colin, I'd like to thank you for that. I think that's very important. Thank you for coming to talk about Leeds. So Colin and Toby, it's down to you. I'm sure Amanda's also looking forward to those meetings. We're all very happy to play our part, and we want to see more deputies, absolutely, from Leeds. And Colin, also, can I thank you for everything that you're doing on the Constitution Working Group and the Constitution Committee. It's very much appreciated. So Leeds is having a very big part to play in the running of the Board of Deputies. You're pushing, as always, well above your weight. So thank you for that. Marilyn, the last question, thank you. And then we're going to have to move on to the divisional reports.
Okay, my question relates to the Commission on Racial Inclusivity in the Jewish community, as follows. So whilst recognizing the treatment afforded to Black, non-Black, coloured and Mizrahi Jews is without doubt an issue of great importance, will the board ensure that any actions and recommendations flowing from the project will not compromise security measures which must be observed by congregations to check the bona fides of any new faces appearing at their gatherings of whatever complexion? Thank you. Marilyn Charter, Sinai Reform Leeds.
Thank you. I'm not sure what you mean about security measures, but the point of the Commission is that all Jews, including Black Jews and Jews of colour, should be welcome in our communities and in our synagogues. And I, of course, always congratulate the security that's provided both locally by the individual shuls and CST. And I'm sure that all the shuls and CST are very happy to play their part. And I admire them for all the work that they do. But the point of the Commission is to make sure that we have inclusivity and understanding and dialogue. And I think that that's very, very, very important. And I'm very proud of all the work, and it's widely supported from across the community. So thank you very much. And I like your backdrop. It's very, very green, very good. Thank you very much. Can I apologise to everybody else? And I'm sorry I can't call someone twice either. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm really sorry that I can't call everybody. Can I now please move on to the Executive Committee report? I'd like to know whether anybody's got any questions in relation to the Executive Committee report. I've not received any, so I'm assuming not. Thank you very, very much for that. Could I now please come on to the divisional reports? I want to make sure that the VPs have got time to be able to address you. So could we have, and it will be this order just so the VPs can prepare, Amanda, Sheila, Stuart, and Edwin. Amanda, are you there?
I am now unmuted. Good morning, deputies, or just about still morning. And it's lovely to see everybody. Thank you, Marie, for handing over to me so that I can give my Defence Division report. I want to highlight today that in the deputy mailing that you received this week, you'll have had a link to the Board of Deputies guide to the new organ donation system in England. The system has received legislative backing and so is now active, and there will be specialist nurses for organ donations who will be practicing according to the new guidance from this upcoming week. After 3 years of a lot of work from lots of people, several new safeguards have been secured, including the ability on the organ donation register to declare that your faith is important to you, the assurance that if you haven't clearly expressed consent, that no organ donation will go ahead without your family or next of kin being consulted, a statement on the organ donation website of the responsibility of the specialist nurses to potential donors of faith and their families, and finally, a phone line system that will be in place whereby your family can contact your preferred religious authority for advice. I want to thank Professor David Katz, who's the medical advisor to the board, for all his work on this issue, which doesn't just go back 3 years, but for decades. And with these safeguards in place, we're now in a situation where we can fully promote engagement with the system. It's critical that your family know what your wishes are, so that if there is a potential for organ donation, they're not left in the distress of uncertainty on the issue. All the large religious authorities are engaging in the phone line system, and it will be fully functioning by the end of August. We sent you through a 2-page note, and we'd like you please to disseminate this to your communities. This will likely to be electronic in the first instance, but as shuls open up, they can be printed out and put on shul notice boards. We can also provide a version for shul magazines if you want one, and if you do, please contact Daniel Elton from the board. And as I say, it's really important that you have these conversations, that you share it with your shul. And we'll also be promoting this through social media and later in the year during Organ Donation Week. I'd now like to open up for questions if anyone has any questions on my report. Thank you.
Right, so Marilyn, would you like to ask Amanda your question, please? You've got your hand up, although I'm not sure if it was there from before. I think it
Marilyn,
might have been
you're muted.
Mute, right, yeah. I do think it's excellent that the board Religious Affairs Officer, Daniel Elton, has facilitated a rabbinic helpline. That's absolutely 100%. So that in the case of a loved one becoming an organ donor, such families can choose the religious authority with which they feel most comfortable. However, there is quite a lot of confusion about this. So will, for example, an appropriate member of Sinai Synagogue be able to arrange a call with Mr. Elton in order to have a short discussion on this issue? So I think it's...
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to talk to Daniel, please do call him. I can see that David's got his hand up, so I'd like to hand over to David Katz, who can give some extra details on this. And David, we can just see the top of your head, so you might want to just slightly move. That's a little bit better. That's much better. Thank you.
Right. Well, first of all, I thank Alan for comments. Of course, any community can make contact about this. That's the reason why we're sending this out to all of you. Secondly, I'm pleased you made that point, because the work done by Daniel, way beyond the call of duty, needs to be acknowledged by the community. This would have been a tour de force on his part. I'd also think we actually need to acknowledge in this the role of the Office of the Chief Rabbi. It's an important role, and the constant public discussion of this matter is a particularly emotive issue, because one of the senior staff there, his brother, was in fact a donor under tragic circumstances, and we need to bear that in mind, because the board also should acknowledge the comments of the head of the Transplant Ethics Committee, Professor Randwana, who has highlighted and has pushed it in the public domain that the names of the donors are extremely important, and their families. It's not just the question of the recipients. Cultural competencies is the current buzzword, and we need to acknowledge also the role of NHS Blood and Transplant and the Human Tissue Authority and the members of those boards, who have been very considerate and supportive and compassionate in looking at our needs, and have looked at this question to look to continuing to work with them in the future. With regard to these competencies within the bubble of the Jewish community, it's sometimes possible to be very self-centered. And within the balloon of the minority faith and ethnic communities, our perspective has been respected and regarded as an important one, voicing some of their concerns as well as our concerns. And it's seen in a different light from which is sometimes seen by members of our community. And of course, in this instance, the board must have noticed the situation with regard to the BAME and faith communities at the moment with regard to COVID-19. It's very different from what it was when we met with them a year ago on the subject. And as Professor Marmot has highlighted, this has amplified and exaggerated inequalities, but it also has highlighted serious societal discrimination. And the board and the Jewish community has to stand together in tackling these issues with these communities.
Thank you, David. That's very helpful to give some additional flavour to the work that's been going on, and as you say, the amazing work that Daniel's done with the Office of Chief Rabbi and all the religious authorities as we've been going through this. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone?
Thank you for that, Amanda.
Thank you.
And may I commend Amanda and David for all the excellent work that they've done on organ donation. It is a real service for the community, and I'd really like to thank you for that. Thank you. Sheila, can you please present the report for the International Division?
Thank you, Marie, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody here. I'd like to proud to present my report. I'm just going to take myself off to gallery view so I don't look at my own face. There we go. Yeah, it's quite off-putting, I promise you. Yes, so I would like to thank everybody who's had input into this report, especially Talia. She works really hard. I only have one staff officer and she works her socks off. And everybody else who's taken part in any activities, gone to any meetings. Thank you everybody for helping compile this report. Just a couple of things before I take questions. The August debate, we have had an offer from the Union of Jewish Students to meet with them because at their conferences they have a very professional expert view on how these things work when you have more than one motion. And I'm actually meeting with James Harris, their new chair, and Bradley Langer, who runs their organisations such as the conference. And Talia and I are meeting with them tomorrow. So we will be able to hone the way this will run on August the 23rd. The other thing I'd like to highlight is that I have been alerted to the fact, and you may well have known about the fact that there's been a report about Yemenite Jews being targeted by the Houthis. I just want you to know that some deputies have raised concerns that there's been an ethnic cleansing of Yemen's small remaining Jewish population. This has included forced removal from their homes, systematic discrimination and human rights violations, such as cutting off water and electricity to their villages. These are unconfirmed reports, but I have to say we have taken the opportunity to write, even though they're unconfirmed, to the Foreign Office, to the Minister, James Cleverly, responsible for Middle East and North African responsibilities, and also to Raymond Shushti, who is the Prime Minister's representative for religious freedoms and cultural practices. So just to let you know that those letters have been sent before Shabbat, and I've already received responses that the ministers in question will address our concerns. But I do stress that these reports are unconfirmed at the moment. I just wanted to add that to my report, and now happy to take any questions or hear any comments for anything from the report. Thank you. Thank you. Louise, I'm happy to take your question. And Lawrence Julius has actually said thank you for writing because he appreciates the fact that the board's taken this on board. So Louise, I'm looking for you. There you are.
I'm muted now. Right,
okay.
Thank you. I wanted to raise the question of textbooks in the Palestinian authorities that incite violence. And I know that you've been doing some work on that. This is a very long-standing issue. When I was an MP, this was increasingly raised with the Foreign Office and the Department for International Development, and we were consistently told there'd been investigations and nothing was wrong. We were then promised a new investigation and told that an assessment was taking place on the content of those school textbooks, which were inciting young Palestinian children to violence, completely incompatible with trying to educate everybody for peaceful coexistence. And I wondered if you've been able to take that up and ask you if you would continue to pursue that, because there were new assurances that there would be an investigation into what was going into Palestinian textbooks, which currently is certainly inciting violence amongst young children.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you. So yes, a really important point. And we actually mentioned, I can hear a phone, no, it's gone. We actually mentioned this meeting we had with Gillian and Talia and myself. We met with James Cleverly, the minister I've just mentioned now, and actually the Minister for International Development, Anne-Marie Trevelyan. She actually had not really been aware of this, and again would press the minister to look at this. And I have to tell you, education, as you know, is one of my driving motivators for being on the board. And it's really important that we take this on board when there's when Palestinian terrorists are celebrated as martyrs, and illustrations in books, you know, even with maths, they relate to terrorist activity, that you know, Israel's bad and Palestinians are entitled to do this and celebrated for doing it. We are absolutely taking this on board, and we will continue to push for it. And I have to say, in this country, of course, Talia, our staff officer, she has been commissioned by Pearson to look at the English textbooks where misinformation and misleading facts are going out to A-level GCSE students. And Talia is working all the time, even as we speak, I believe, working very hard and has been commissioned. Pearson, the publishers, are actually paying for her to do this work. So we're on board with this the whole way. And any instances, I've been contacted by another deputy, I'm not going to name her, but if she's watching, she knows who she is. Every time we pick something up like this, we will take it forward. We can't rewrite their textbooks, but we can let them know that we're not happy. And if the Palestinian Authority receive funding from the UK towards education, absolutely, it's vital that they know that this misinformation is being distributed. So thank you for your point. Thank you. Anybody else like to say anything? I'm always happy to take things offline. Stuart's smiling.
You have Valerie Berkson.
Valerie, hi Valerie.
I'm very concerned.
Valerie, how are you?
Sorry, Valerie Berkson speaking. I am a member of the Movement for Reform Judaism. Sorry, I'm just a bit concerned that we have done absolutely nothing to the latest reports. I don't know how confirmed they are, that the Chinese are still persecuting the Uyghurs.
Okay, so we do have staff members who engage with the reports coming in, and any representation we can make, Valerie, where we think we can make a difference, absolutely. We write letters, we meet with Foreign Office ministers, but thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I will make sure it gets raised. Thank you. Anybody else? I can't see anybody. Okay, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And Marie, back over to you.
Thank you. Can I just make a few comments on the claims conference, because we weren't able to meet in person, and as deputies will be aware, the claims conference negotiating committee usually meets with representatives of the German Ministry of Finance and other German government officials to press a number of issues of concern to the Jewish victims of Nazi persecution. So the 2020 negotiations, which were scheduled for May the 13th, had to be postponed due to coronavirus. And it's expected, just so deputies are updated, that these negotiations are now going to take place in September or October. And there will be three main issues on the agenda. One is going to be in-home services, 2, hardship fund payments, and 3, Shoah education. And there will also be additional issues that will be discussed. So I will be able to update deputies later on in the year on the very important work of the claims conference. Thank you. Stuart, could you now please present your report?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'll be succinct in order to allow space for questions, and also for Edwin's report, which has a deal of substance to it. I'm going to cover several things in fairly bite-sized chunks. I will say, as ever, if you have specific questions, particularly about the minutiae of our finances, please come to me separately offline. I'll be delighted to deal with whatever the questions are. Just say the divisional report is pretty self-explanatory. We're running an operating surplus so far this year. Our expectation is that this will be hard to maintain later in the year because of likely pressure on income in these difficult times. Meanwhile, our investment reserve is in good shape. Just want to touch on several things quickly. Firstly, I really do want to thank the board's professional staff, people like Brian Markison and Judy Silkoff, and perhaps most of all at the moment, Stuart Williamson, to whom we wish a speedy recovery for all their help. Also my colleagues, the HOs, and also the executive, and the numerous F&O members and people from outside of the division who've been contributing so much to our different working groups and committees looking at areas like risk, audit, financial oversight, income generation, and investment. Ben earlier mentioned the idea of co-option. Well, we've been co-opting people either openly or de facto for several years onto the FNO as it is. We have people from other divisions or even people who aren't on any working with us quite regularly. And I think it's an excellent idea that could be adopted across the board by the board. I also want to thank, there are a whole bunch of deputies whose work really goes unacknowledged and unsung. And I don't think as individuals they particularly want to be pointed out or named, who do a lot of very good work to promote the board within their communities. And this includes getting the communal contribution, which is our main source of income, onto synagogal bills where they represent synagogues. And they also work to ensure that their organizations take up their full representation. One of the deputies from Leeds asked about representation levels from that city. There's nothing to stop an organization wishing to be applying to be represented. There is a process to go through, but not all organizations take up their full rights. But equally, unfortunately, not all organizations, even this late in a triennium, and of course this doesn't apply to very many of you out there, and this doesn't exclude the various extenuating or exceptional circumstances that exist, but not all of you actually have paid your rep fees yet for no apparent reason. And it's really interesting, and I am not going to name names, and I've been resisting pressure from within the FNO elsewhere to go back to the old practice of, in effect, publishing and naming and shaming recalcitrant organizations or deputies. But some of you are not simply doing nothing evident to get the communal contribution onto your synagogal bills, let alone encouraging contributions to that, but you're not doing any, you don't seem to be doing anything to get your rep fees paid. And yet a very small minority of you are extremely noisy and absolutely prepared to be a part of the internal debates of the board, but you're not, you're letting everyone else pay their dues, but you're not paying yours. I find this a bit sad, and I really don't know what to do about this. I mean, are we supposed to name and shame you? I don't ever want to get to that point. Look, on a more positive, on other scores, I'll just let you know that we're going to be presenting the board's annual report and accounts, all things being equal, in September, and they'll be very much in line with what I've trailed in the last couple of divisional reports. And I'd only encourage you to do what Marie said, invite her, invite other HOs, pull them into your communities. And equally, for example, if you're in Leeds or anywhere north of a certain point, take advantage of Sarah Radovan, who's in Manchester. She's extremely capable, and we're all extremely willing to get behind her in terms of getting things going local, at a local level. And we have Lauren Kiles, who's also in C2. She's based in London, who can help you. So do reach out. Don't just sit back and expect things to happen by magic. Of course, I'm happy to take questions. I can't emphasize strongly enough that if it's about financial minutiae, it might be better to take this offline. Just get in touch. That's really all. And greetings to everyone. Anyway. And if there are no questions, I'm not offended at all. I can't hear you, Marie. Marie, you're on mute.
You've got a couple of questions. I can see Robert Festenstein, Vicky Harris, Carol Abrahams, and Marilyn Travate. I suggest you take people that haven't spoken today first. Okay, I'll ask for you. Robert, would you like to ask your question to Stuart?
Yes, thank you. Stuart, good morning. Now, my question is a follow-up from the responses to my two questions, which haven't been answered, and also that made by the deputy for the JNF in advance of the last plenary in relation to the contribution made by the board to the JLC. I don't understand why they can't be answered to the plenary. They can be, they can be, the answer to all three questions should take no more than 10 or 15 minutes to be produced by the professional staff. You might think that they're minutiae, but they are basic. They don't require any confidential information to be disclosed. So why can't they be answered to the body of deputies? I think being directed to a report which is not yet being produced, or an online conversation with the office holder, it's not reflective of a democratic or accountable organisation. Can I suggest, please, that the answers be sent out by email to the deputies during the course of this coming week? Thank you.
Robert, can you remind me what the question was about the JLC, number one?
So,
and number two, can you just...
The question of JLC was how much was the...
I mean, I'm just going to start in the spirit of what I was talking about earlier. You know, you've been submitting motions, you've been submitting questions, for example, for what appears to be a 7-month period, asking, you know, writing into the president, asking about spending in a particular division, but not staff costs. Why that has to be aired at a board meeting, or even submitted to the president as a question when you can't come to me, is perhaps beyond me, and maybe I'm missing something. But equally, I would ask, you know, where do you fall in the realms of those deputies who are up to date with rep fees or communal contributions from your organization? Let me ask this of everyone who wishes to take our time and energy, but do remind me of the JLC question as well, because I can't remember it, I'm sorry. It wasn't highlighted to me again.
The question was...
The other two questions.
Okay, the question was, how much did the board pay to affiliate to the JLC?
Okay, I'll come back to you on that one. What's the next one?
Then I asked a question about how many staff there were, and I asked a question about the expenditure of the education division between the 1st of September and the end of March.
Why do you need it for that period when it's out of line with our normal reporting sequence?
Can I just say two things?
I'm just asking this constructively. Why that particular period, and why excluding staff? And can I ask you, where do you stand with communal contribution from your synagogue, and where do you stand with rep fees from your synagogue?
Okay. So let's start in reverse order. I didn't realise that there was a barrier that I had to overcome in order to be entitled to ask questions. As long as I'm just
sorry, guys. I'm going to let me intervene, because you're going to have to take this offline, because we're having a board meeting here. It's not a secret about the JLC. I think the figure is £7,700, and I also think, in relation to Robert's Shaw, that I'm not sure the Board of Deputies gets communal contributions, but it does get rep fees. That's from what I remember. So you've both asked each other questions, and I think that they're fair questions, but perhaps you could take it offline. Do you agree to do that, Robert?
I'd be delighted to.
Yeah, do you agree to that, Robert? Are you there? Right, well, Robert doesn't appear to be there, but I suggest you do, because we need to. You've got Vicky Harris, Carol Abrahams, Marilyn Travato, and Simone Klass would like to ask some questions. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Vicky, please. Hello.
To be unmuted. Good afternoon, Stuart.
Hi, Vicky.
Thank you for your report. Undoubtedly, there's a substantial risk of income shortfall. I believe the main synagogal bodies are facing this serious threat. I can only really speak for my own synagogue. I should have said Vicky Harris, Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue, and I apologise for not starting that way. However, let me compliment you, Stuart, for the skill that you've shown throughout this triennium in managing and presenting the financial reports. I'm not going to get into arguments about what should or shouldn't be answered in a question, but I'd like to compliment you. What I'd like to ask you was, you've got proven financial accounting skills. We're all well aware of that. We've seen previous treasurers who have not had those skills. Would you be of the view expressed by, if I may say so, Marie earlier, in some discussions we had with her, that the post for treasurer should be one which is skill specific? In other words, that we do have assurance that the candidates for treasurer in future elections will have proven skills in finance and accounting, so that they can do the sort of good job that you've done in this triennium.
Okay, Vicky, it's a very good question, and there has been discussion about, if you want, if not breaking up, then slicing and dicing some of the responsibilities that have traditionally gone into this area, because they're not just about financial management. fundraising and promoting the board and brand building are a different skill set, perhaps, to managing the finances, or even and accounting related skills are not necessarily the same as investment skills either, and we do have a reserve. So personally, I'm quite open to discussion around it. I don't need, those of us who are in finance know you do not need to be a qualified accountant to manage money, to manage a company's or an organization's financial affairs, but you do need to have some idea what you're doing, ideally. So the answer is a kind of very open-ended, personally in the round, yes, but it's not for me to define the end point. So I hope, Vicky, I think we're in tune on this one.
Can I just add on that? We are in tune because I suggested that the Constitution Working Group morph into the first nominations committee, and when the finance and organisation role is split, that the treasurer part of that is actually a skill, and that needs to be considered by the nominations committee, because we're going to break it up into two divisions. So thank you so much, Vicky. I think you've got time for two more questions, or three if you take them all together, Stuart, because we have to move on to Edwin's
I'll be as
report.
quick as possible.
So could Carol, Marilyn, and then Simone ask your questions as quickly as you can? Apologies, and then Stuart will take them at once.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. Stuart, every meeting, every plenary meeting in your report, you say that it's down to deputies to make sure the finances are done. I know that my shul has paid its representation fee. I also know that I have personally worked very hard and managed to get the communal levy put back on the bills. However, I cannot make people contribute to the communal levy. And I find that this statement, this repeated statement every year, every month, every other month, is actually quite distressing to me. And can you please, you might not contact deputies directly if there is a problem about the finance from their synagogues, rather than having this widespread condemnation of some deputies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Simone and Marilyn, can you ask your questions, and Stuart will reply to all of you at once. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Marilyn
Yes.
first. Oh, it's okay. It's fine, Simone. Hello, welcome.
Okay, so mine is nothing like the previous conversation. Here I am offering a chance to improve the coffers for the Board of Deputies. And I don't know about any other deputies, but my purchases through Amazon have accelerated dramatically over the last few months. And for every purchase I make on Amazon, there is a percentage that goes to the Board of Deputies. It's a particular part on Amazon, which is called Smile, and you choose your designated charity, and the Board of Deputies is featured there. So I would urge people to have a look at it. I've also asked before, Stuart, this is the question, whether you can make arrangements with eBay, because currently they're not accepting Board of Deputies as charity, and it would come from the board to do so. Thank you.
Marilyn. Thank you, Simone. Thank you. It's great. I put my hand up to show you. Marilyn Travato.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So
very
you'll
much.
have to be very quick, because
It will be quick. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Stuart, on your fantastic work that you are producing, and very, very clear indeed. Now the bad bit. Is it not a good idea to ask you how much the commission, the new commission, is going to cost, more or less? These are questions that sometimes people at the synagogue ask me.
Thank you. Stuart, would you please give an answer to those questions, and then we must come to Edwin.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll start with Carol. Carol, thank you. And yes, point taken. I am trying, albeit clumsily perhaps, to try and get across that it's a minority of deputies who are not taking the burden on their shoulders as much as they might. Most are doing a really, are doing great work with us. But point taken. If what I'm saying has its effect, it has the effect that you say it does, then I'll modify how I put it forward. But it's still an issue. Simone, thank you. Yes, we'll look into eBay, and thank you for reminding people about Smile on Amazon. Brilliant. And Marilyn, I genuinely don't have any figures to hand. There's any external cost is de minimis. In terms of the allocation of any staff time, I haven't seen anything final on that. If I can find something on that fairly quickly, I will come back to you about that. Nothing secret about that. Nothing secret about most of what we do. My one concern, and this applies to any of you asking questions, there's no desire not to be transparent. It's just that some stuff can be dealt with more efficiently and effectively offline rather than wasting board meeting time. That's all. I mean, it's not that these are unimportant things, but this isn't what, I don't think this is what we're here for. There are 35 people, no fewer. I keep a count, who to one extent or another have sight of our finances at different levels of detail, some of it very deep, and it's continual. So it's not like we're not transparent. It's just been pointed out to me by one deputy in passing, Richard Sassoon, thank you very much, that £38.20 has been raised via Smile so far, and what was raised in May. We could probably do better. Thanks to all four of you who asked questions. Sorry it took so long this time.
No, that's fine. Look, this is why we're a democratic organisation. Deputies should know. I think what Marilyn's saying is that everything's got a cost to it, and absolutely it has. And even if the cost is staff time, that's still cost. It's all in the planning. And now that Stuart's aware of that, obviously you will be told. But lots of the volunteering that's done isn't actually a cost. Of course, staff time and allocation is something that's important. But if deputies are thinking vast sums of money are being spent by the Board of Deputies, can I assure you that they don't? We have to spend our money extremely carefully, and a lot of what we do are ideas, thoughts, actions. It's not spending vast sums. We don't have vast sums to spend, and we think very carefully about the projects that we take on for the benefit of the community. But they're all really good questions, and I'm sure Stuart will be delighted if you want to contact him offline. Thank you. Edwin, would you like to present your report, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm delighted to present another fact report. Zoom has been a boom for my community division on all fronts, mostly, especially on reaching out to communities. So between Sarah Radivan, Lauren Claes, and Ed Shaw and Andrew Gilbert, my vice chair, we feel that we are covering and reaching out to almost every small, big, large, in different community in the whole country, almost on a weekly basis. Secondly, I want to comment on the Commission on Racial Inclusivity. I think this is a brave and groundbreaking initiative. This is an initiative that shows where change can be, which is within us. That has become an example, and we use that as an example for other faith groups and other race groups to imitate and to follow the lead that we are doing in examining how we feel, where we feel about how we can change ourselves. My division is anticipating, and we have already started work on post the conclusions. So we are in preparation for that on education. We have had a major meeting with Jeremy Mickelson and deciding where do we actually go in discovering, in working out this sort of within us. I want to comment on a couple of emails and notes I received from deputies. They said, why include Mizrahi Jews? Surely this is not relevant. The truth is, what this commission is brilliant at is to hear from the people themselves, how are they perceived? So it's not for us to say, no, we love everybody. We love blacks and color and Jews and Mizrahi. It's how they perceive our treatment to them. And I'm delighted to be very much part of that and to report and to actually anticipate as well. Thirdly, I want to remark on Gary Mons about working with the Haredi. I'm delighted that we have a meeting. I have a meeting with the Welfare Delivery Minister, Will Quince, to round table with all the Haredi communities from Gateshead, from Canvey Island, from Manchester, and from Stamford Hill. This follows on another meeting we had, a very successful one with the Shadow, with Secretary for Work and Pensions, Jonathan Reynolds. So there are a lot of work being done with the Haredi community side by side, and not necessarily we have to put it as headlines, but assure you that they are very much part of our interests and our thing. Fourthly, I want to talk about PICOA very quickly, hot off the press. This is the PICOA inspection handbook, came out Friday afternoon, and this is the copy. I just want to read one line from the forward by the Chief Rabbi. It says, PICOA accredited by the government and respected by Ofsted, PICOA is a real credit for our community and a living example of the incalculable value that we place on education for the highest quality. Thank you, Jeffrey Leader, for doing this sterling work over the years, and may you continue for many more. Finally, my final point is interfaith. I'd like your help, deputies. We need new initiatives post-corona. We have been not as active on that line as a division, and there's an appeal for you to please join us and join Karen Maxwell and Martin Motz with ideas, with initiatives. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. You've got two more. Well, if you can do 3 questions all at once very quickly, that would be fantastic. We've got Sally Strauss, Anthony Adler, Irene Mansfield. Please, can you ask your questions concisely? Apologies to you, but we're running short of time. Sally first.
Sally Strauss, Edward Mazzorti Synagogue. I was delighted to learn that Sheila spoke about Pearson's commissioning Talia to check their textbooks. This has a definite crossover to education. Many years ago, Sandra Teacher and I, along with other members of the RE Council of England and Wales, produced a guide for educational publishers. It can be found on their website. Can I suggest it should be sent out again to all publishers? In addition, as Edwin knows, we are looking at the role of the Jewish Teachers Association, and in particular their Facebook group called UK Jewish Teachers. Perhaps Talia can post something about the Palestinian textbooks on there. Thank you.
Anthony, and then Irene, and then Edwin will respond to you all. Thank you so much.
Hello, Anthony Adler from St Albans Mazzorti Synagogue. I'll try to be brief. Deputies, you might remember that some time ago I raised the matter of a consultation opened by the Home Secretary into criminalising unauthorised encampments intended seemingly to cause changes to and problems to Gypsy, Traveller and Roma communities in the UK. The board put forward a very, very good consultation, a fabulous document that I believe Anthony Silkoff was responsible for. And Edwin, you said at the time that any proposal the government put forward was very careful in terms of their potential impact on Gypsy, Roma and Traveller communities, which are already some of the most marginalised and persecuted in the UK. Now, Priti Patel recently announced that she, in the House of Commons, that she hasn't forgotten this promise to deal with this issue in her terms, and that policy on this issue will be forthcoming in the autumn. Can you assure me that the Board of Deputies is going to continue to raise this issue? And I wonder if you had any particular plans that you could share to make sure that our words on this aren't left unheard. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we've got Irene Mansfield and Paul Edlin, and Paul's question will be the last question. So can you two speak, and then Edwin will reply to all of you. Irene.
I wanted to congratulate you on the, I wanted to congratulate you on the appointment of Stephen Bush. I think he's an excellent appointment, and I've heard him 2 or 3 times now on that subject, and he's been absolutely excellent. The other thing I wanted to raise is the question of Islamophobia in the Tory party. I see from other reports that you don't think that it's on a par with the, or we don't think it's on a par with the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. And I think we may be seen as being rather specialist in our seeing our vision of this, because I think that it is as bad. And if we're not seen in an interfaith community as pointing out the Islamophobia as strongly as we pointed out the anti-Semitism, I fear that our interfaith credentials will be very much looked at askance.
Thank you, Sally. Can I say that question I think probably should have gone to the Defence Division, because Edwin does a huge amount of work with the Muslim community, as so do I. Edwin will come back to you because we're really near to finishing. Apologies. Paul, can you put your question concisely, and then Edwin will respond to all of you.
Thank you, President. Paul
Thank
Edwin,
you.
Glasgow Jewish Representative Council, and I'm speaking this morning as chairman of the board's Regional Deputies Assembly and the smaller group, the Regional Council, which is the executive arm of that. I just wanted to thank you, President, just to update the deputies, how much more activity has been happening in the Regional Council since we have had the facility of Zoom meetings, etc., plus the appointment of Sarah Radovan as the new manager for COVID, etc., in the regions, who is doing a fantastic job. And just to thank you, President, for meeting with us on almost a monthly basis, I think it is, with the presidents of regional communities throughout the country. And also all the meetings that we've had on Zoom with the Regional Council, the smaller group, and Sheila Giebel gave an excellent presentation to all the deputies in Scotland last week. And this is growing exponentially at the moment. It's absolutely fantastic. And the whole country now, the Jewish communities of the regions throughout the country are able to much more able to make a contribution than ever before. And I'd like to just express appreciation to everybody involved in that, especially the regional deputies themselves, who have embraced the new opportunities that having a full-time member of staff available to us has made. So, and particularly yourself, President, for your vision in this, and Edwin, who is overseeing it through his division. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Edwin, thank you very much, Paul. Over to you, Edwin.
Okay, Sally Strauss, thank you very much for raising this Association of Jewish Teachers, taken on board, as you know, and you have been asked to present a paper on that, and thank you for your contribution to the division. Even though you are an observer, you come in more often than even the participants. Thanks for that. I want to, the Gypsy, the Islamophobia, I want to assure you that while I'm Vice Chair and Vice President here, these subjects will be very much high on our agenda. We are coming in, even on the Islamophobia, we're actually leading now on the Uyghur issue, the Muslims of China, and we are the ones who are actually connecting Muslim communities with us in this fight. So rest assured that the board's reputation has never been higher on the interfaith, and I guarantee you, Mr. Adler, that the Gypsy issue will not be forgotten and will be part of that. Thanks very much, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your for everybody's excellent questions. And on the report, when Stephen Bush publishes the report, I think it will have impact on every division. So everyone will have a full opportunity to consider the report and make sure that various parts of it are implicated. Are actually implemented, not implicated. Apologies. Can I also say, in relation to the regions, thank you for that, Paul. It's very important that we're not London centric. We absolutely support the regions, and Sarah's appointment in Manchester is going to be a permanent appointment. We've made sure that's clear, and we are absolutely committed to supporting the regions. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We've had very, very large numbers attending, and not only that, there's so much involvement and thought and deputies really want to have their voice heard. And that's what the Board of Deputies is all about. It's democracy, democracy in action. I am absolutely thrilled that we are able to make sure that we can oversee this huge change in the Constitution to make us a modern organisation going forward. And so many deputies have given up their time, and everything that you do makes such a difference, not just to our communities, but other communities where we live, other faith communities, and we've all stuck together and we've made such a difference during the coronavirus. And just communicating with all of you and Jews far and wide, feeling that we've got support is something that will get us through these very, very hard times. And in every crisis, there are lessons to learn. And I think we've all learned many of them, and we have to take the best of those lessons to bring about change in the future. Can I say once again, all the work that we do and that I do, I couldn't do without the team. The honorary officers are a fantastic team, and I also want to thank Gillian Meron and all the staff. Judy Silkoff's doing a fantastic work, and the staff team put in hours above and beyond because they care so much about the community, and I'm very, very proud of our organisation and everything that we're doing. And we really are a democracy, and today I think really shows that people have got their views, and I want to assure everybody that those views will be listened to. We will move forwards, and I again apologise if everything is not agreed in everybody's aspect, but we're going to do the very best we can, and we're always open to listening, considering and changing where necessary in the future. We are a very adaptable organisation, and we're changing with the times, and we want to make sure that going forwards, young people and all Jews want to be part of the Board of Deputies. So this really is very historic work. May I thank you also for everything you're doing for all your communities, representing your communities, and thank you for all of your time this morning. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again very shortly, and I'm sure before the next meeting I will see many of you at various Zoom meetings and communal meetings. So thank you. Deputies, stay well. Thank you. God bless.